I want to bring in criminal defense attorney and legal analyst Jonna Spilbor this morning. As you listen to that, what's the strategy of the defense? Are they doing a good job trying to say that this is not a good witness by the prosecution? He's just out to get Alex Murdaugh.
Yeah, since we're in the prosecution's rebuttal case, I'm scratching my head asking myself, why did the prosecution even bring this witness? It's the jury's job to decide whether Alex Murdaugh is being genuinely emotional in his 2 days of testimony on the stand. It is their job to bring somebody on the stand to insinuate or directly testify that Alex Murdaugh must have been acting with all that emotion is really unnecessary, and it detracts from the prosecution's case. It's the same as when we say, listen, don't ask one question too many when you're an attorney and you're winning your case. Don't ask that one question too many. To the prosecutor, I would say, don't put on that one witness too many. And it looks like they kind of just did.
Right, kind of a last-ditch effort. Let's talk about the jury going to the crime scene, Jonna. What's the benefit of them seeing the place that they're hearing so much about?
Here's my best guess. There are two questions I think are looming in the jury's mind, because they're looming in my mind. The first question is, according to the lay of the land, how possible is it that one or two people were able to sort of hide out and then ambush Maggie and Paul? Like, what do the trees look like? How far away is the tree line from the kennels? These are questions that you really can't see from the drone video. You really can't take in from a picture. And then the other question is, all right, how far is the house realistically from the kennels? Because we know that Alex Murdaugh didn't hear anything. He didn't know any commotion was happening. So if the jury gets to eyeball that, they may have a better sense that, at least according, if you believe the defense, that Alex Murdaugh genuinely would not have known that something was going on. Those are the two key points to take away from the field trip.
I want to go through some of the layers of Alex Murdaugh's testimony, because there are many, starting with the fact that he admitted to lying about being at the kennels that night, right? The Snapchat video that was basically the prosecution's biggest piece of evidence against him. He said, I lied, I was there, blamed his drug problem. How powerful was that days later as you analyze his testimony for the jury and they're processing that piece of it?
Personally, I think it was a make or break moment for this trial. And I say that because if the jury believes Alex Murdaugh after those 2 days, if the jury believes him, nothing else matters, Marni. Nothing else. None of this completely circumstantial case matters, because he got on the stand and he said numerous times, I didn't do it. Just like Dick Harpootlian said in his opening statement, which feels like forever ago. So if the jury believes him, it's going to be critical. And the other thought I had, just as an attorney myself, is it's a shame that this man squandered his entire life, his entire career, his entire law firm, all of his friendships, because if you wanted to learn how to be an unshakable, unbreakable witness on the stand, Alex Murdaugh could teach that. That's how stoic I think he was, and how good a witness he was for himself. It was really a sight to behold.
So what do you expect in closing arguments, Jonna? Where do you think each legal side will lean to try to convince the jury of their case? Starting with the prosecution.
Okay. We know the prosecution's theme is, not only is he a liar, not only was he motivated by his financial crimes, but one of the things that Creighton Waters did throughout his cross-exam is, listen, you looked all the people you loved in the face and you lied. And he said that over and over again. So I guarantee he's going to get up in front of that jury and say, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, he lied to the people he loved. He's lying to you, because he does not want the jury to believe the 2 days of testimony. And the defense is going to say, look, he's a father who lost a wife and a kid. And on top of that, ladies and gentlemen, we have proven that the state's investigation was shoddy. They said bullets went this way. Our experts said they went the other way. It's a largely circumstantial case. There's no direct evidence. There's no murder weapon. There's no genuine motive. And all of the witnesses the state called had an axe to grind, and rightfully so. And therefore, you should find my client not guilty. Personally, I think the defense has the better argument after listening to 5-6 weeks of testimony in this case.
Right. And what's so interesting, Jonna, as I read comments online, I talk to people just in general day to day who are following it, they go back and forth. I think it's all speculation at this point. We have no idea where the jury will land. Do you think the most likely scenario is a hung jury, because you just have so much confusion? They've muddied the waters so much that you can't convince everybody?
Yeah, if I were a betting woman, I would put my money on hung jury, because of course there are going to be some people who are going to walk in and think he's already innocent and others who aren't, and it's going to be an interesting deliberation process. The one thing I have that may not result in a hung jury is this judge is not going to want a hung jury, and he might keep these jurors in there deliberating until their nails are bleeding. But we'll have to see about that. But yeah, that is a good possible outcome for this case.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.